the disinfection methods. Welcome, Mr. James Thorn. Welcome, Mr. James Thorn.
Thank you, Lenu. That was a great introduction. I don't know about the fact that I'm eminent. I'm pretty well known. I don't know. I don't know what good that does, but I do have a background in industrial hygiene, also as a paramedic, and I've done a lot of medical management. So I'm pretty well trained on this one subject. So, anyways, I won't talk about me. I'll just go ahead and launch into this because I know everybody wants to hear about the subject matter. One thing, though, is that I am the vice president of the American Society of Safety Professionals, the Maharashtra chapter. If there's anybody out there who is an HSE professional and wants to become a member of our society or even talk about it, feel free to email me and I can give you all the information on that. So we'll go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to show is a quote. Now, this is actually a very appropriate quote for the situation we're in now, and it's by Winston Churchill. He could be a little bit controversial, but what he says here is very good. The want of foresight, the unwillingness when action would be simple and effective, a lack of clear thinking, confusion of counsel until the emergency comes, until self-preservation strikes its jarring gong. These are the features which constitute the endless repetition of history. The reason I chose this quote as a lead-in is because this has happened before. This is not the first time that a pandemic has hit the world. I have been studying, and I was involved in a lot of the issues with SARS, MERS, H1N1, and I've also been reading a lot and studying a lot about the Spanish flu and bubonic plague and Black Death and a lot of other pandemics that have come and gone. The biggest challenge that we have is that we're just not learning from the past, and we act like this is a new thing every time that it happens. I think that this time around that the world is going to learn from this, and I hope there's not another repetition. In the meantime, we're still struggling with it. And one of the things we are struggling with is respirators and masks. So what I want to do is give you a little short agenda here. We're going to talk about the difference between respirators and masks. We'll talk about some decontamination methods and then some conclusions, and then we can be open for discussion. Now, there is a worldwide shortage of masks and respirators. It's getting better. It's getting a lot better. But when I first put this presentation together, it was very critical. One of the problems that we really have is the fact that we just don't have enough of these N95 respirators out there in common use right now. And the problem with these is the way that they're manufactured when it comes to disinfection. I'm going to cover that just a little bit further. But this is absolutely the best protection that you can probably get on the open market right now. Now in India, these are readily available even on Amazon, but you got to be very careful because I'm also finding counterfeits. I found this in a shop in Powai, which is where I live, and it says N95, and it's not. It's a simple little cloth mask. It's not an N95. There's not even a manufacturer's name on it. That's what makes it very sketchy. But anyways, we'll move on. One of the things to cover is the fact that the CDC and the Food and Drug Administration and OSHA, which are three of the United States legislative groups that actually introduce law, policy, procedure when it comes to health and safety regulations, they have basically said that they are not going to enforce the pre-existing laws, rules, and regulations talking about fit testing, disposal, disinfection, things like that, because it is a pandemic and it is a shortage. So basically, there have been no citations issued. The reason that this is important in India and the reason this is important in other parts of the world is because other regulatory agencies pretty much tend to follow what some of these agencies set as guidelines, rules, and regulations, basically law in the United States. So we don't anticipate that anybody would get in any serious issues with this, but at the same time, they don't say that they won't do anything later. They're just not saying anything. A little bit about some of the historical background on this. If you look at this, you see some of the numbers here, and these are pandemics that had happened in the past. Now, the one of them that's very interesting is smallpox. You look at smallpox. Smallpox was a scourge until the early 1950s when Jonas Salk actually invented the vaccine for smallpox. And he took it from a disease very similar to it called cowpox, and that's what they developed the vaccine from. I remember studying this in college. But if you go down, the one that's really interesting, and I want to see if I can do this, the drawing, I can't. Okay, the Hong Kong flu, 1968, 1969. 1 million fatalities. 1 million, over 100,000 in the United States alone. And you know what? Nobody remembers it. Nobody remembers it because the Vietnam War, the elections in the United States, the man on the moon, nobody remembers the Hong Kong flu. I remember it. I was a child at the time. I barely remember it, but I remember my mom being really concerned about me going to my preschool classes and stuff because the Hong Kong flu was a killer. It had like a 5% mortality rate. But that's what I'm saying. We're just not learning from these pre-existing pandemics. Now, the Spanish flu, which is very similar to this type of flu, it killed 50 million. They estimate it could have killed up to 500 million. They're just not quite sure. But the Spanish flu was a very, very virulent strain. But the protection factors for the Spanish flu and this are almost identical. We go in and now let's talk about the new normal. You see everybody everywhere wearing masks and respirators. And you can see photos throughout here, and this shows people in just normal day-to-day type situations. And this is the new normal. It's everybody's wearing them. Now, what alarms me is when I go out in public and I see people not wearing masks and respirators or wearing them wrong, and we're going to cover a little bit of that later too. But you know what? This is the old normal. All of these photos were taken between 1918 and 1920, and they're from around the world. There are photos from China, there are photos from the United States, there are photos from Russia, and on the lower left-hand corner is a photo from Mumbai. That is a photo from Mumbai down there in the lower left-hand corner, and these were all taken during the Spanish flu pandemic. So this happened 100 years ago, but it was a much worse virus than what we have today. And there was even controversy then, as there is controversy now. Even the other day in the lift in my building, a very well-to-do, very educated guy got into a discussion with me because he was wearing his mask under his nose, and I was explaining to him that the nose is a primary entry point because of the mucous membranes. And he started to tell me that he didn't need the mask, that it has a very low mortality rate, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't feel like arguing with him. I just said, read up on it, dude. But this has happened before, and you can see there were people even back in the 1918 through the 1920 period that didn't think they needed a mask. Well, a lot of them died, and I'm afraid that's what's going to happen now. The reason we have to wear the mask, though, is very simple. When you inhale air, you inhale 21% oxygen, and it is the humidity of whatever's in the ambient air. When you exhale, though, you're exhaling out of the lungs, and now it becomes very humid. The air that you exhale is very humid. That's why when you do like this, your glasses get fogged up because you're exhaling moisture. What happens is that the virus attaches itself to the moisture droplets, which are so small you can't see them, but they're much larger than the virus. A lot of people think that no respirator can filter out the virus. Well, that's true. The virus is so small, the only kind of respirator that would filter out is a ceramic respirator or ceramic filter, which is what they use for reverse osmosis water purification. Not usable. But what they're trying to trap is not the virus itself, but the suspension that the virus is carried on. And the suspension the virus is carried on is the humidity coming out of your lungs. So when you're exhaling, you're actually pushing air out. Now, this graph here actually shows, and it's pretty representative of what happens with the three sizes of aerosol droplets that come out whenever you exhale. So you have large droplets, you have medium-sized droplets, you have small droplets. Your larger droplets just basically fall off within 1.5 meters. But the very, very small and some of the ones will actually travel up to 2 meters away. And that's why the social distancing has come in, and all the experts have said 2 meters. This is why, because that is about the distance that your normal respiration will actually carry the droplet. When the virus becomes suspended in these droplets, it can stay suspended in the air for about a half hour before it settles down. But there have been very few track cases of people walking into a room and getting the virus from this. So they're really not sure. One of the things that's actually become very apparent is the fact that it's not just the fact that you're exposed to it, it's how much of the virus you're exposed to. So chances are you may have come in contact with it already at some point in time. Your body managed to kill the 1 or 2 that got inside you. But if you're flooded with millions of them, it just overwhelms the body. It does live for a while on surfaces. And we know that some of the studies that have been done show that for some reason copper kills it. We just don't know why. We also know that it can live on iron for up to 5 days. We don't know why. They're still trying to study this. But basically, if you are questioning the fact that you have touched something or somebody touched something, all you have to do is just set it aside and let it sit for a few days, and the virus will die by itself. It won't live outside the human host any longer than that. There are some differences now between surgical masks, cloth masks, and respirators. An N95 stands for nuisance level 95%. That is a code set forth by NIOSH, which is the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, which is an adjunct of the Department of Labor and OSHA. Now, a lot of people think that things are OSHA approved. There's no such thing. OSHA approves nothing. Only NIOSH approves things. So N95 is a designation that was given because we use these in industry quite a bit. In fact, the industry I'm in, which is in oil and gas, is a very common respirator for us. But we use it for trapping particulates primarily from dust. It doesn't work against gases, but it does work against dust, and it does work against these suspensions. Now, one of the things about this, and we have to understand, is that the difference between a respirator and a mask is actually in the construction of it. Now, I'm going to talk about that too, but here are some examples of respirators. On the upper left-hand corner, you have a respirator that's basically called an 8210. That's a 3M model respirator. It's made by 3M, which is Minnesota Mining Manufacturing. And then below, you see another one, which is the type that has the little flapper valve in it. On the upper right-hand corner and on the right, you see what is called a dual cartridge half mask respirator. Now, that has a filter on it that says P100. That stands for particulate 100%. That's actually the best respirator that you can get for this, but very difficult to use, very heavy, very hard to wear all day, and very impractical. The respirator in the middle that you see is called a powered air purifying respirator. Now, that's actually got a purifying module in the back. It pulls air in, purifies it, sends it into a helmet. You breathe that. It's a controlled atmosphere. This is what they use in like class 3, class 4 biological setups. So once again, very impractical. Now, what we see now is that people are wearing whatever they can get their hands on. You see surgical masks, the doctor in the upper left-hand corner. You see a guy wearing a cloth mask in the middle on the upper part. On the right, you see a guy wearing the 3M 8210. Now on the bottom, the lower left-hand corner, it's a woman wearing a mask. Then you see a guy wearing a respirator, which he thinks will protect him, but it won't. That respirator has a black band around the cartridge. That is for organic vapor. It doesn't work against particulates. So this guy actually has no protection, or maybe as much as a cloth mask. All right. So there are a lot of different things out there, but at the end of the day, something's better than nothing. All right. So there's times when I even walk outside and I have a cloth mask like this. This is a triple ply cloth mask. And sometimes I wear this if I'm going in an area that I know what the threat is. What is it that makes a respirator different? Very simple. It's a construction. If you look on the lower left-hand side, you can see a respirator that's actually been cut and they're pulling it apart. It's actually 3 layers. And in the 3 layers, you have a support layer, you have a comfort layer, and in the middle, you have a polypropylene melt-blown layer. And you can see the photo on the lower right-hand side shows you what that looks like. Those threads are so small, it's really hard to see them. But the secret to the respirator is the fact that this melt-blown layer has an electrical charge. If you look at this slide here, you're going to see that it's a triple ply and then it goes over a soft inner liner. The layer in the middle is electrically charged. So what it does is it attracts the suspension as the suspension comes in and causes it to bond with that melt-blown layer. The problem is if you wash that respirator, if you wash it in a soapy solution or you soak it with alcohol or you throw it in a washing machine, it negates the electrical charge. Now you just have a triple ply mask like everybody else does. So this is the problem with this type of respirator. You literally can't wash them. So we have to come up with other methods. Once again, the electric charging, this is just something about it that shows how it's actually charged. It's trapped onto the melt-blown layer. And then once it's trapped on the melt-blown layer, it won't go anywhere. Now, the efficiency can be reduced by not just the washing or anything, but also by static charge degradation or physical damage to the respirator. So if your respirator gets smashed or crushed are cut or bent, it's not as effective. It has to have a good clean fit around the face, and it has to have a very tight fit. Now, this is the surgical mask, which you see a lot of people using these days. The surgical mask is built and designed very similar to the N95 respirator. The difference is that it's not a full face respirator. FFR stands for full face respirator. So you see that it's actually got gaps in the sides. So if I take one of my surgical masks like this and I put it on, what you can see is that I actually have some gaps in the side here, right? And also around my nose. So if I breathe up, it'll fog my glasses. Now, the reason that surgical masks are effective is the fact that the surgical mask is not designed to protect me. It's designed to protect you. This is the reason that surgeons and medical professionals wear these in a surgery or in medical setups. They're not afraid of catching a disease from you. They're afraid of passing something on to you. They're not afraid of getting it from you. So that's the reason for the surgical mask. That's the big difference. This protects me. The FFR protects me. The surgical mask protects you. A little bit of difference there. I'm all about me. I wear one of these. Anyways, the surgical mask is built very similar to the N95 respirator. It has an electrically charged melt-blown layer in the middle. Once again, you can't wash it. But the construction of these is very flimsy at times. They're not designed to be used more than once. And so because of that, they're not constructed very well. They're designed to be disposable. And so, a lot of people, I see them trying to rewear these a lot of times. And what happens is that the earpieces get slack. They start to come apart. You can see this one here actually tore a little bit. And that was just for me trying it on one time. Cloth masks are another thing. And believe me, cloth masks do have their use. They are effective. They're not as effective as a true respirator or a surgical mask, but they are effective. They will capture a lot of the large and the medium-sized drops. Now, one of the things about the cloth mask that we know from some of the studies that have been done at Johns Hopkins University and some of the others is that it needs to have at least 3 plies. If it doesn't have 3 plies, it's not as much protection as you need. So a single ply is not very good. A double ply is okay. A 3 ply, it's good. Okay, so let's get through that. There are some DIY methods for making these masks. I've seen a lot of different things out on the internet on how to do these. I got some of these. This was from a ladies group in Rajasthan. They're actually making these and selling them. It's a 3-ply mask. It's actually very good construction. The thing I like about this is that I can actually tie it around the back of my head and it will fit me perfectly. Whereas the elastic around the ears, I tend to have problems with my glasses and it doesn't ever quite fit my face, but I like the tie back better than that. Let me move on. And let's talk about decontaminating respirators. Now, this is why everybody came in today to talk about this. It's basically 7 methods that we found for decontaminating these respirators. And I'm talking about these, the FFRs. They are heat alcohol-based sprays, time, ultraviolet light, steam, diluted bleach, and vaporized hydrogen peroxide. Now, you notice 4 of these are in red. The reason is because we pretty much discounted these. Now, ultraviolet light it will kill the virus, but it'll only kill the virus that it sees. It will not kill a virus it doesn't see. So what happens is that if you put a 3-ply respirator under ultraviolet light, all it kills is the virus that's on the surface. That's it. It will not kill any virus that has penetrated the surface and gone into the melt-blown layer or the electric charge place. It just won't reach it, so it won't kill the virus. Basically, it doesn't work. It's good for smooth surfaces. It doesn't help much for respirators and masks. Steam is impractical because you need a big device really called an autoclave. And they have them in hospitals, not very practical. Diluted bleach, not really recommended because it's toxic. And then vaporized or hydrogen peroxide, totally not recommended, highly explosive. So we don't want to cause a bigger issue by trying to solve a smaller issue, even though it's not a small issue. But the heat, alcohol-based sprays, and time are what I'm going to talk about here over the next couple of minutes. Heat decontamination is useful. The virus we have found a lot of people thought that it was going to just die off whenever things got cold. Not true. It has to get down to zero, but it is very sensitive to heat. All right. Heat decontamination can be conducted very easily, but there's something that you need. You actually need a container to put the respirator in, and you need a convection oven. A microwave will not work. You cannot use a microwave for this. You have to have a heat-producing convection oven that'll get up to a temperature of about 85 degrees centigrade. Now, if you look on the upper left-hand corner, you're going to see a dim sum box. They're perfect for this, or you can use a heat-resistant piece of Tupperware or something like that. The problem with using heat decontamination in most cases is the fact that a lot of the straps on these respirators are made from either a plastic or an elastic that is rubber-based, like that 3M8210. What happens is you're decontaminating the respirators, but you're degrading the strap, and then the straps snap. So we found that it doesn't work very well for those type of respirators. You can only use those a few times. It's better to get a respirator that has more of like a strap like this. This has basically a fiber cloth based strap with the expandable parts that are woven into it. So this is a much better respirator. But anyways, the methodology is very, very easy. You just take the respirator, put it face down, cut a little piece of paper towel, soak it with some water, and put it in the oven. That's it. And what happens is that water in that paper towel evaporates into the mask, and it kills. It's like steam. It's like an autoclave. It kills the virus inside the mask. Then you have to take it out of the oven and let it sit for a while. You got to have a chance to decontaminate. Well, one of the things that we found is that you can use the respirator maybe 10 to 20 times by using heat decontamination. It does work, but it tends to degrade the respirator. It also causes the respirator sometimes to lose shape. And that's a big problem too, because it does have to have a seal around the face. Alcohol-based solutions are something that a lot of people thought would work at first. In fact, even I thought that this was going to be one of the better solutions, but it's really not, because one of the problems is the fact that since the virus is trapped in the middle, in the meltblown layer, you've got to soak that respirator with alcohol. But when you do that, what happens is that it will actually affect the electrostatic charge. So it's something that we're not recommending to use it. Some people have, a lot have, but it doesn't seem to work very well in a lot of cases. It will work better on a surgical mask than it will on a full respirator. On a cloth mask, it doesn't really matter, but it's not something that I would try to use. Now, this to me seems to be the best method, and this is the simple elixir of time. One of the things that we found is that the virus itself will actually die within a 5 to 7 day period if it's not inside a human host. So looking at some of the solutions that some of the hospitals came up with seemed to be some of the very, very simple ones. A lot of the hospitals were doing this. They were just simply issuing 7 respirators and 7 paper bags. And what they had everybody do was they would wear a respirator, and at the end of their shift, they dropped it in the bag. The bag's marked with the day and the date. And then they used another respirator out of another bag. They would let that bag sit for 7 days and then use that respirator again. This is something that I actually practice myself. I have quite a few respirators here at home. But one of the things that I've been studying them a lot. But I've got a set of about 10 of these white FFRs. These are made by a company called Leslico. It's an Indian manufacturer. It's actually a very good respirator. I was very fortunate. I just took these out of our warehouse. But anyways, this respirator, I've got a bunch of these, and I just cycle through them. I'll wear one day, I hang it up, I let it sit, I just use another one. That's to me is just the simplest way of a decontamination method. You're just using time and Mother Nature. Now, one of the things about the N95s is that there's a lot of ways to wear these and put these on and take these off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the proper way to put one of these on and take it off. I'm going to remove my glasses for a second. I've seen a lot of people do this the wrong way. Basically, this is what's called a fold flat respirator. So I actually have to bend the nose piece open so I can get it on. You take the top strap, all right? And what you do is you put the top strap on first. Once you have the top strap on, then you take the bottom strap and pull it over your head. Very easy to do. After you do that, then you push the nose piece down and mold it to your nose so that you have a seal around your face. And you can see from the side that I have a seal right here. You can also see that I'm wearing this in the correct manner, which is one strap is up over my ears and one strap is down around the base of my neck. Now, taking it off is even easier because it's a one finger method. All I do is reach behind and do like that. That's it. Only one finger touch the respirator. If there's any virus that I'm going to come in contact with, it's going to be on the outside surface of this respirator. The melt-blown layer on the inside will trap all the virus that I tried to inhale. So the only thing that I'm looking at is this. By only using one finger, I have really reduced the amount of surface area that I could possibly become into contamination with. So anyways, that's just a simple, basic solution. All right. This also is one of the things that we found from hospitals where they were showing people how to put these in bags. All right. One of the things about the cycle of use is that we know that you have to leave these in a dry area. Now it's monsoon season right now. A lot of people have humidity problems. I know I have several dehumidifiers in my home, and you want to make sure that it's in a clean, ventilated area, that it's actually it's non-humid. Now, one of the things we found was the studies will say 15 cycles. They won't tell you any more than that because they don't want to get into litigation. They don't want to get into trouble. I think you can use it a few more times than that. I think I've probably gone through mine, I don't know, 10 or 12 times already, and they're holding up fine. Okay, cloth masks are not the best protection, but they're better than nothing. And a bandana is not much protection. I see people just wearing a bandana over their face. Like I was saying before, you need at least 3 plies on this. And I see a lot of very cheaply made, very poorly made respirators. I stop every once in a while in a pharmacy and I'll pick them up, like this one. I picked this one up the other day. This is the one that it says N95 on the package. But when I open it up, what I find is it's just paper. It's just a little paper with a little flapper valve. All right, it's just not very good. Actually, the cloth mask would probably be better than that. It's difficult sometimes to wear one of these more than a full shift because they get soiled, they get sweat soaked, they get dirty, they get slippery. Whereas with a cloth mask, if you have a cloth mask, you can just take it off, stick it in your pocket or throw it, hang it up somewhere and just put another one on. So they're a lot more cost efficient is what they are. But I do see a lot of people using these. Now, one of the things about cloth masks is that, and masks in general, is I see people wearing these wrong a lot. On the left-hand side, you'll see a graph that was taken from the Times of India, and it shows you all the ways to not wear a mask. Now, you've got the open nose, which if you inhale the virus through the mouth, the saliva inside your mouth is naturally acidic. It'll actually kill some of the virus. It's not proven, but you could still get it through there. The nose is the primary entry point. It's not as acidic and it's full of mucus. So what happens is the virus gets trapped in the mucus, or it goes straight down into the lungs, goes through the bronchial passage, through the bronchioles, down to the alveoli, enters the bloodstream. But what you see in a lot of people is they wear the mask too high up, or my favorite, the chin protector. Like you see the guy with the turban on the right-hand side. They're wearing it below their chin. I just see a lot of people wearing them wrong. You've got to cover the nose. You've got to cover the mouth. It's just a no-brainer. It has to be done that way. The only routes that this virus can possibly enter are through your nose or your mouth. A lot of people have said things about the eyes. Nobody's proven that yet. It can't come through the skin, so you can't absorb it. Ingestion has not been proven. It's only inhalation. The mask is designed to help you with the 3 holes that you use for respiration, the 2 nostrils and the mouth. That's it. Those are the entry points. Cover this, and you protect yourself and you protect everybody else. Cloth mask decontamination is the easiest of all. You just wash it. You just throw it in your regular laundry. You throw it in the regular laundry, wash it with detergent, pull it out, hang it up, done. It's that easy. It's that simple. This mask here has been washed probably half a dozen times, and it's still in good shape. You can also use a bleach solution where you use 20 centiliters of bleach with a liter of room temperature water, and you can soak it in that and do it that way. To me, it's a lot easier just to use a washing machine. Plus the fact that I don't want to breathe in any bleach later, and they always stink of it. Plus, if you have a fashionable mask and you have a design on it, like say maybe a Louis Vuitton, it's going to ruin the fabric, okay? And so this is something that the girls are concerned about. Now, drying the mask, pretty easy. You can either throw it in a dryer or you just hang dry it. If you're like me, I don't like paying big, expensive electric bills. So I have an electric dryer, but I also have a rack like you see on the lower right-hand side. You just hang it there, let it air dry, it'll be fine, all right? There are a lot of internationally manufactured respirators out there that are good quality. Now, the Department of Labor says that's U.S. Department of Labor. These are actually the signatures for the different respirators that are out there that are actually considered to be as good as an N95. And you can see that there's Australia, Brazil, even the People's Republic of China, the European Union, Republic of Korea, and Mexico. Now, a lot of people have asked about the KN95. A lot of those are made in China. I honestly, I'm not going to wear one. That's just me. What I'm using is this is actually approved by the European Union. It has a CE code on it. It's got the same CE code that you see there. It's a 149-2009. That's just the year, but it's actually a 149. So if you look on there, you'll see where it says 149-2001. That's just an example. It's actually the year that goes on there. But anyways, getting back to that, these are actually the types of respirators that you can get. Now, you notice that it doesn't say N95 anywhere. Well, the reason is because the N95 this is from the Department of Labor, so the N95 designation preceded that. Some of our conclusions are that the virus lives for a limited amount of time at room temperature. There's a lot of testing going on. There's a lot of environmental variables, but we do know that it will last a lot longer at colder temperatures than it will at warmer temperatures. We also know that time is the best method of decontamination. We just know that. Okay. Now, one thing we do know is that the proper putting of the respirator on and taking it off, called donning and doffing, that's very important. So what I showed you guys on how to put that on, use the one finger method, pull it on, set it tight. That's the way to do it. Unfortunately, one of the things I see a lot of times, I see people wear one strap and not the bottom strap, and that's so they can have airflow out the bottom. Now it's not sealing. So I see a lot of people doing things like this. You know what? These weren't designed to be comfortable. They were designed to save your life. That's the reason that we're wearing them. It's very uncomfortable. It's hard to wear these all day. I know. But what we want to do is we do want to make sure that everybody knows exactly what the difference is between masks and respirators, and what they can do to protect themselves, and what they can do for decontamination methods. Everyone was able to find their questions answered in this brief presentation. If anyone has any questions on this any further, I'm open for questions, or I can take an email or whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. James. That was a great session, very informative and very interesting. Thank you for sharing this utmost knowledge, important knowledge with us. Discuss few things with you, which I think many people will be interested in knowing and understanding. So, how difficult was it to adapt the mask and respirator in the construction industry? Since you are a part of this construction industry, how difficult was it to introduce the concept of using, was it already in place due to particulate matters or aerosol that was there?
Well, the thing about being in the industry of HSE, health, safety, and environment, respiratory protection is a big part of our job, and we do this on a frequent basis. I attended my industrial hygiene training at Harvard School of Public Health, and part of our training was respiratory protection. So we were very well indoctrinated. Like I said, this is something we deal with every day. We use respirators. Like I said, when the COVID crisis started, we had 30,000 of these in the warehouse, and it wasn't for viruses. It was for using these in industry to protect people against dusts and fumes and things like that. So we use these quite often. It wasn't a big switch for us to have everybody wearing them. The construction workers, depending upon the craft, some of them wear these quite frequently. I've been using respirators just about all my adult life in one setting or another. So it wasn't a big switch for us. It's a big switch for a lot of people, but for medical people, people in the oil and gas industry, people in manufacturing, people in construction, this is normal for us.
Great, great. Thank you for sharing this knowledge with us, Mr. James. And really, thank you for being on board with us. It was great to have a session from your side. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm very, very, very honored that you guys chose to have me speak about this subject. I'm very passionate about it. And I just really want to get the message out to as many people as possible.
Thank